So just to start off and kind of level set, oftentimes when I start these sessions or I'm teaching courses or something, I start with the question, what is UX? And if we were all to sit down and write an answer, there would be some commonalities, there would be some differences, but there's no like one clear understanding. So I just wanted to kind of ground us in like what I say and what I mean when I'm speaking about user experience, kind of as a broad discipline, and then we'll get a little more granular as talking about user research in particular. So this is a quote by Kim Goodwin. It's not mine. Can't see her name super well today, but the idea here, right, is that professional designers must define financially viable products, services, and environments that meet the practical, physical, cognitive, and emotional needs of a wide range of people. And to me, this is a really great summary of what user experience means to me. What I like about it in particular is it takes in the business needs, right? So like when we're synthesizing and understanding information from our users, the lens and context we also have to consider it in is who are end clients or customers, the clients as well. So, or those can be internal or kind of external. I always kind of speak from a digital agency perspective, so it's a little more external. But that's the financially viable piece, right? I have yet to have anyone pay me to build them things that like aren't going to make them money, right? So, but then the other piece too is about the practical, physical, cognitive, and emotional needs, right? So we're thinking about experiences across the board. We're thinking about various touch points, needs, motivations, desires, pain points. Those are kind of the common terms we use when we're trying to understand the context within which our users are engaging with us. And then, of course, the last piece there is a wide range of people, right? We want to understand both the breadth and the depth of who our customers are. And then also try to identify those areas within which we have the most opportunity for growth. So understanding that is really important. We'll go through some various processes that I and our team at SapientRazorfish kind of implement in order to kind of best understand that lens of those customers, who they are, and kind of learn to speak their language a little bit while walking a mile in their shoes, if you will. So with that, the focus really today is about gathering user feedback, right? If you are working with UX teams, there can be a wide range of roles that those UX designers play. Sometimes it looks a little bit more like an experienced strategist. Sometimes it's a little bit more of an information architect. Sometimes it's more of almost like a product management role. Sometimes it bleeds a little bit into visual design. So we wear a lot of different hats. So the hat today that I really want to speak about is more about the user research segment. So what is user research, right? It's a pretty basic question, but it's really focusing on understanding users' needs, motivations, pain points, behaviors. Again, those are kind of those key terms we'll always go through both observation and task analysis. Research is really going to help us understand the context within which our users are kind of behaving, right? And more importantly, we conduct user research to ensure that we're not taking on a big risk, right? There's a large risk in making assumptions in what it is that our customers actually need. There's a risk in that what we might observe as a pain point is actually a pain point for them. They may actually like what is seemingly an inefficient process, right? There are multiple reasons that we've learned through various ethnographic research that like that indirect observation sometimes can be difficult, and it's really difficult to get to kind of a why question, like why are they doing what they're doing, and do they see that as a pain point? So again, this kind of bleeds into why conduct user research, right? The main thing, and this one kind of seems obvious, but sometimes you'd be surprised, like you are not your user. You can be one of them, right? But you really can't speak for everybody. You really want to look at the breadth of who your customers are. You want to listen to the most number of stories that you can, again, to get to that context, to understand those behaviors and motivations. And really understand kind of, gain empathy, right? We use the term empathy a lot, like have empathy for who our customers are, what they're doing, why they want to engage with us, when they want to engage with us, how they want to engage with us, where they want to engage with us, right? Benefits of user research, it's really about a deep understanding of your audience, and there are a lot of different ways we can start to understand our audience, right? Even if we have a digital product up and running, analytics can tell us a lot about some of the contextual questions, but again, getting to some of that really deep understanding of why those motivations are there, why those behaviors are there, that's really where user research comes into play. We can ensure that our product solutions align with our users' needs and behaviors, so that is when we talk about the term utility. Like, are we providing functional products that are meeting utility-based needs for our customers? And then the last piece is usability. Usability is probably most often the type of user testing or user research that people are most familiar with. So again, that's really just validating ease of use of a product. So I've used a lot of these words, right? And these words are probably familiar to most of us from some sort of like elementary school English class, right? Like it's about understanding context. And again, the what, the when, the where, the how, and the who, a lot of this we can gain from a bunch of different ways that don't necessarily involve speaking directly to our customers. We can start to get that context from analytics, from surveys, from marketing segmentation research. But to get fundamentally to that why, and that's where we really start to gain that empathy for our customers. That is where kind of user experience designs, core focus, and like when we start using the word, terms like user-centered design, to me, that's the space we really start to play in, right? It's why. So at the core of it all, we'll keep it really simple when we get a little bit deeper into like what user research is. There are fundamentally two different types of user research. There's generative research. Generative research is really about giving direction about what a product should be. You would do this when you don't necessarily have an established product or you're looking to kind of like add on to a product set, right? It's trying to understand, again, why someone would want to use something, how they're going to use it, that type of thing. Evaluative is really, it lets you know that your product is matching your user needs and expectations. So this is where like usability research would come in. We have already established a product and we're trying to validate if it does meet the needs of our customers, if it is meeting that utility functionality for them. So that's kind of at the core, and I'll go through some examples of what falls into these two buckets today. It won't be necessarily exhaustive. I'm trying to kind of pick up on the key kind of pieces of research that you would do within each of these today, and then more importantly, how you build deliverables that your teams can then use to kind of target your designs against, make decisions against. So I'm a huge proponent of like actionable research, like really synthesizing it in a way that can get a design team up and moving, because if we just know this information about our customers, but it's not structured in a way that we can talk about who our customers are amongst ourselves and with our clients and our internal teams, then it really doesn't get us very far. So just, again, key types of research here. This is a process that I've implemented before. Sometimes you do these as standalone elements, again, just kind of depending where you are in a process, what types of questions you're trying to answer. Quantitative surveys are a great tool to understand like the breadth of who your customers are, right? So it's really the best opportunity to talk to the largest number of people for, quite frankly, the least amount of money, right? So we can go out there, send surveys to thousands of people, get a lot of information back. One of the limitations to quantitative surveys, though, is we often learn about problems, but not why they occur, right? We don't get that like really rich data associated with like, again, why questions, right? If any of you have ever done large-scale surveys, oftentimes we try to get to why with those big open form field boxes, right? And those don't get filled out, right? People are really willing to score something for you on a Likert scale. They're kind of willing to give you 10 minutes of their time, as long as you're not asking them to put together like a really rich narrative. Those rich narratives really come out then in qualitative interviews. There's a lot of terms that get used related to qualitative interviews. Contextual inquiries would be a type of qualitative interview where you essentially go out into the place where your users are kind of engaging with your product, be that their home, be that their office, wherever that is. That's kind of what a contextual inquiry is. Sometimes these are called IDIs, just in-depth interviews, kind of just to align some of the nomenclature you might hear kind of associated with what a qualitative interview is. And so again, these are really rich research methods. They allow for deep insights into motivations and behaviors. So again, how do we start to answer why questions associated with our users? The limitations, the timelines for these can be long. It can be really costly. Depending on who your representative users are and how narrow or broad that group is, it can be very difficult and, again, costly to recruit against those. A lot of times this involves traveling to multiple representative markets. The analysis takes a lot more time and energy than your quant survey, where you just kind of throw in your your Excel files or SPSS files and kind of get a system to kind of do that for you. This involves a lot of researchers' time and energy to ensure that they're synthesizing the data in a way that's really meaningful and, again, actionable. Both of these would really be considered, again, in that generative space more often than not. There can be a little flexibility there, but more often than not, I would classify those as generative research methodologies, whereas usability testing is clearly more of an evaluative tool. Again, this can be, the spectrum for usability testing is extremely broad, right? We have kind of like talk to your neighbor and have a drink as kind of the Krug method, right? Or you can do really detailed, in-depth, like in-lab kind of research things that are moderated. But again, it can be difficult to fully, again, if you're doing remote unmoderated testing, which is kind of the quickest and easiest way to do this, a lot of times these things get run over the weekend and then your team has immediate feedback, which is amazing. But again, it's really difficult to kind of understand those motivations and behaviors, kind of similarly to the quantitative surveys. So what I wanted to talk about next is just how do we understand the customer mindset and how do we really bring the customer's voice as a lens that we can kind of use to discuss our products, our services, our experiences, and then how do we kind of build, again, actionable deliverables that we can take to our teams or to our clients or our stakeholders to kind of help facilitate those conversations. So one key way we can do this is through persona research. Again, sometimes you do this as a combination of qualitative and quantitative research. There's a variety of different ways of how you get to personas, but overall personas are a representation of a group of users, again, conducted by user research. That's an important piece of it, right? They're not necessarily marketing segmentations. They're not proto-personas where we just kind of take a guess at it. They really should be grounded in actual user research that aid in how we make our design decisions, right? So they help design, and they can help guide a lot of different types of decisions. So product features, navigation, content hierarchy, even visual design. We can start to speak about who our customers are and those representative segments in these ways if we do our persona research correctly. So I just want to show one example of a specific persona. This was specifically related to some research for store credit card usage, right? So what you'll see here, and we actually ended up with 7 of these. So we had a spectrum of people that we could differentiate. We overlaid some marketing segmentation research so we understood what percentage of our customer base each of these personas represented. So you can start to see how we can start to make different design decisions against those things, understanding how much of our customer base kind of looked like this individual, what their attitudinal and behavioral considerations are associated with things. So you have kind of a singular quote typically that kind of summarizes the mindset of who that customer is, that persona segment. In particular here, what we learned about this, and most of this was learned through a very large scale. I think we interviewed about 1,000 people through an online interview survey that we did, or an online survey that we did. So we learned some of the demographic information about them. We learned things like this segment typically was in their late 30s. They were more often than not married. They typically had young families. Their household income was kind of moderate to high, so you can start to see how that's more like segmentation information. When we got to the in-depth interview, so that was kind of the next step of this project, we learned more about the mindset of these customers. So they really wanted to have a VIP experience associated with the store. They were more likely to own kind of like lapsed credit cards. They valued. And so the other thing that we did is we put some key attributes about these segments, and these were parallel across all 6 of our segments, right? So we could do kind of comparative analysis as to what was most important to these individuals, and again, use that as a lens through which we voiced kind of that empathy for the customer and what their needs and motivations were as we were making specific design decisions. So, right, their preferred purchase method leaned towards credit. They more often than not paid in full, which you can imagine because they're interested in those rewards, right? The rewards don't really balance out if you're carrying a balance. Their motivation was heavily to the rewards, and then they kind of were in the middle with how many credit cards were in their wallet. So we knew we were kind of competing with some of those things as well. So kind of layered onto this is really customer journey maps, right? So the next step in kind of understanding, now we know kind of who our customers are, how many of those segments are. Again, some of those attitudinal and behavioral attributes, the next thing you can do is kind of map against that across a journey, across time and space, what our customers are doing, what their specific pain points are. And again, this is where we start to get to opportunities for implementing new products or services or feature sets that are going to solve those needs. And I'll show an example, and I show this example because sometimes when you look up customer journey maps on Google or something, you'll inevitably end up with the adaptive path model, and it is extremely robust, and they spend a ton of time and energy, and it's super contextual, but you can do something as high level as this, right? So what we've really just outlined from a credit card customer journey is acquisitions, usage, and ongoing digital management. For each of our persona segments, we just went with kind of one key pain point and then one key opportunity, and then we would go through as a company along with our stakeholders and our clients to identify and prioritize those things. So that is how we start to layer back in the business needs of things as well. So with that, I kind of spoke a lot about, again, like that lens through the customer, but I think one of the things that we want to continue to speak about, and Karina will kind of add on to, is that this is an iterative cycle, and that those business needs and considerations and priorities are a key part of that journey as well.
Right. So sometimes when we get all this information and we take that back to our clients are just like, what? I can't believe people think this of me. So it's kind of holding a mirror up to them to showcase how they're perceived in the marketplace. Other times, clients are very excited, like, wow, this is cool. They feel like they found a gold mine, and they want to go from brand X to brand Apple like tomorrow. And so that's where we hold their hands and we're like, okay, I know you want to do this. I know you want to transform your business, but here's how you do it. And so we have 4 pillars set up. Strategy, technology, people, and process. And I was just at Adobe Summit, and this is last week, and they kind of validated these 4 key pillars, which was good for us to know that we were heading in the right direction. Now, these 4 pillars are exhaustive. I'll go through them at a high level, but this could be our own separate lunch and learn, kind of thing. So for strategy, we want to hold our clients accountable to what they want to achieve, and we can't be broad with what those goals are. It's not to say like, I want to create an app, or I want happy customers that are digitally savvy. These goals have to be smart, right? They have to be specific, measurable, action-based, results-based, and timely. And then technology. What we often encounter is that enterprises want to make a change, and sometimes their IT department or their technology department can operate on very outdated methods. And then they hire an agency like ourselves where we move at the speed of light and our technology can go extremely fast. And inevitably there's a clash, right? Like somebody's moving really slow, somebody's moving really fast. We're trying to get data from them, they're trying to get data from us. So it's really having those organizations understand that advancing their technology and getting these 2 partners what they need, that's a timely investment. That's a cost investment, and obviously a financial investment. And then people. We both work on the T-Mobile account, and John Ledger is the CEO. He came on board about 10 years ago, and he had this vision to take T-Mobile from what it was to what it is today. And he knew he needed to hire the right people in the right places to do this. This is a lot of progressive leaders within the organization that say, hey, I want to be, the Un-carrier of the telecom world or whatnot. That takes a lot of time. These kinds of transformations cannot happen overnight. But it comes in with a CEO that is very visionary, that wants to go from point A to point B. And then process. Again, this is a very detailed pillar, but there needs to be a process, a type of like crawl, walk, run kind of plan on how we're going to get there, how we're going to get there slowly, what are our first steps, and then how we're going to move there more rapidly to propel that growth. That concludes our presentation. I know it's just a snippet of what we do, but I think we're going to open it up to questions if you guys have any. Great.